If you've been following along on our cabin videos, you know that the mosquitoes at that Minnesota cabin were driving you crazy just watching them, much less me there trying to endure them. So I headed back to Illinois when I got things all put together, around the home, yard mowed, garden taken care of. Got hold of a bunch of my buddies and we set up kind of a complicated trip. And we drove up to Manitoba, to Bissett, Manitoba, and this is Blue Water Airways. And we 5 guys, and we hauled in all this gear. I mean, like 1,000 pounds. And the pilot flew us out to Brad Lake, and we began our adventures up in a much more bug-friendly environment than what I'd been putting up with at the Minnesota cabin. You must admit, much nicer than the drone of all those mosquitoes at that Minnesota cabin. We had again, it was a complicated trip. I had people coming and going. 4 different parties were with me over the 39 days that I was in on this journey. And this first group, there was 5 of us went in and we stayed on one camp and we had a good time. With all that 1,000 pounds of gear, we opted not to move on off this lake. So we fried the fish they caught, did some wandering around, had a good time overall. And then finally, after a couple of weeks, the plane came back in, and this had my sister and her friend Dave on it. Now, my sister and her friend Dave, you might remember, they'd been up to the cabin years ago.
Hi from Norsky Nook.
I can tell Sister Paula's here. What's in the box, Paula?
Well, it's a lingonberry apple pie from the Norsky Nook and was from Wisconsin.
Tip up the box. Got to give a plug here.
The original.
Delivered internationally.
Traveled 500 miles.
We didn't tell customs.
I had a lot of fishermen along, so we had no trouble having some really good fish fries. And after a while, we kind of started setting them up as kind of a potluck. One guy asked one night, "What are we doing?" I said, "Well, just thinking of it as a dish to pass." And so here I'm under the shelter. You can hear the wind blowing. We put the canoes around to keep the wind off the stove so it get hot enough that we can do a good job frying up the fish. Been a nice wet year up in Manitoba. Maybe too wet for most, but made for a good blueberry crop. And we had good fishing, and we had these blueberry pancakes for our pleasure. But all too soon, time to head home.